Since the introduction of the new ground effect regulations at the beginning of last year, Red Bull has been the dominant force in Formula One, with the competition unable to catch up no matter what they do. The combination of Max Verstappen and the Red Bull's RB19 monster has proven to be unstoppable, standing out as a league above the rest throughout the season. But why exactly is this the case? What makes Red Bull cars the best, and are there any strategies from other F1 rivals to beat Red Bull? Let's take a look in depth at the domination of the RB19. Although its advantage in qualifying has varied depending on specific circumstances and track features, the RB19 has usually been the fastest car in single-lap conditions, and this gap further increases in race scenarios. When the winning margin is slim, it's typically due to specific circumstances, such as the deployment of the safety car in Australia and Britain, or Verstappen's late pit stop in Austria to secure the fastest lap. Moreover, even when the gaps are substantial, Verstappen can afford to be more conservative. There's no necessity to take undue risks or stress the car's power unit more than required, and this means that we might not have seen the RB19's full potential exploited over a complete race distance, simply because there isn't even a consistent challenger to Red Bull, with teams like Mercedes, Aston Martin, Ferrari and McLaren having sporadic moments where they have outperformed others. So at a time when the rest of the field is both unpredictable and closely matched, why is Red Bull still so clearly ahead of the competition, even to the point where they could potentially achieve the almost unthinkable feat of winning every race this season? There are many reasons for it, and it's not just one to be honest. Red Bull's limited wind tunnel and CFD testing, due to F1's aerodynamic testing regulations and additional restrictions for exceeding the cost cap in 2021, have confined development to the RB19. Yet, as the team principal Christian Horner has noted, this hasn't been enough to slow them down, as the RB19 has remained largely the same since the season's start to avoid compromising its 2024 performance. Despite this, Red Bull has managed to introduce some updates to every race since the season began, with the exception of Miami. These include significant alterations such as a new front wing in Australia, side pod and floor tweaks in Azerbaijan, and more. This consistent package has allowed Red Bull to have a robust understanding of the car, particularly in maximising tyre performance, which is vital for success. F1 teams must work quickly, but designing, identifying a problem and producing a part can take months. A detailed underfloor reveal during Sergio Perez's crash in Monaco illustrated this, with Red Bull's chief engineer Paul Monahan suggesting it could take rival teams up to 4 months to produce a flaw influenced by this design. Red Bull's RB19 has proved to be a well-rounded vehicle, and while competitors like Aston Martin, Ferrari, Mercedes and McLaren have strengths and weaknesses in various areas, the RB19's balanced design, including suspension and detailed floor concepts, offers advantages in both slow and fast corners. The car's underfloor-based downforce is more aerodynamically efficient, allowing it to follow other cars closely through corners and maintain an edge. So one cannot help but wonder, if Red Bull's concept is so effective, why don't others simply replicate it? While some are attempting to, it's not that simple, as changing fundamental designs like suspension, geometry or major elements like rear suspension requires a new car altogether. These limitations can't be altered in season, and every time the competition introduces new designs, Red Bull can move ahead with its own improvements. This potential iterative cycle could continue, with problems persisting until 2025. Even with certain architectural limitations, historically well-funded teams like Mercedes could orchestrate major revamps by heavily investing in the problem. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff has noted that creating a new monocoque during the season would have been possible if not for the cost cap restrictions. Considering changes that Lewis Hamilton keeps urging for, like moving the cockpit position, this would be an extensive task, effectively making it a new, or at least a genuine, B-spec machine. Among the chasing teams, Mercedes and Ferrari have already implemented changes that have consumed significant time and resources, but failed to significantly reduce Red Bull's lead. Mercedes replaced its controversial narrow side pods with a significant shift in floor concepts and improvements to the mechanical platform. While it provided an initial lift, it hasn't been enough. Similarly, Ferrari and McLaren made major changes this year, but they also haven't been able to make much headway against Red Bull. Red Bull's position allows them to continue adding performance and understanding to a car that fundamentally works, without making sudden changes in direction or troubleshooting. They have created a virtuous circle that sustains dominance in F1. This is favourable for Red Bull, especially considering its wind tunnel and CFD limitations. If pressured, difficult decisions would need to be made between focusing on current success or long-term strategy. Red Bull's ability to continue winning races without compromising next season's start puts them in a serene position. Then we must not forget Adrian Newey's unique contribution to F1 car design, specifically at Red Bull. His ability to evaluate regulations and pinpoint key performance opportunities makes him an unparalleled force, and his creativity feeds into Red Bull's strong technical team, a setup that no other team possesses. Two teams that have been Red Bull's closest competitors in 2023, Aston Martin and McLaren, are not yet ready to beat them. Aston Martin's new factory and wind tunnel are still in development, and McLaren is aiming for regular race wins by 2025. On the other hand, Ferrari and Mercedes, with their ample resources and experience, should be up there fighting with Red Bull. However, they got their car concepts wrong at the start of this ground effect regulations era and are still busy rectifying that. Both faced technical issues like porpoising and bouncing last year, which Red Bull avoided. These reflect weaknesses in the teams and areas where their scientific understanding lagged, putting them in a prolonged, arduous battle to close the gap with Red Bull. What about the human side of things? Is Verstappen really that good of a driver? And at 25 years old, Verstappen may not even be near his peak. He has consistently been recognised as a remarkably talented driver. His mastery began in the European go-karting arena, and by 2014 he had advanced to racing in Formula 3. Red Bull, awed by Verstappen's skills, hastened his move to F1 the next year. At the tender age of 17, without even a standard driver's licence, he became the youngest participant in the sport's history. What distinguishes Verstappen is not only his connection to the car and track, but also his unique driving style. Like all drivers, Verstappen collaborates with his engineers to fine-tune the car to his preferences. Most drivers seek a balance between aggressive cornering and stability to prevent the car's rear from spinning out. Verstappen, however, has an unparalleled ability to manage a car with a very unstable rear end. He can sense when the rear of the car reaches its limit and swiftly bring it under control, and this skill provides him with an extra pointy front end, enabling him to thrust into corners more quickly and forcefully than his rivals. Coupled with a top-tier Red Bull car, this ability allows Verstappen to extract even more performance from his machine. Verstappen's extraordinary skill has been cultivated since childhood, guided by his father, Jos Verstappen, an F1 racer in the 90s and early 2000s. Together, the father-son duo dominated the European go-karting scene, continually working towards an F1 future. Despite being in the limelight since his mid-teens, Verstappen has remained grounded. The glamorous life of F1 has not turned his head, and he has avoided off-track controversies. He hasn't transformed much personally either. His focus has unswervingly been on refining his skills as a driver. Away from the track, Verstappen is often found sim racing. He has a home setup where he digitally competes with some of the world's top sim racers. Although this virtual environment can't replicate the physical dynamics of an F1 car, it serves to sharpen skills like car control and setup. He even revealed plans to install a simulator in his new motorhome for European races, explaining, "That way, I can just keep on driving when I'm back in the evening. I like it. It's my hobby in a way, and it just keeps you sharp as well." For Verstappen, the passion for racing doesn't end with stepping out of a real F1 car. He continues to think about driving, even virtually, always with an eye on victory. Red Bull's dominance comes down to a near-perfect mashup of a great car which excels in every part of the track, made by the absolute genius which is Adrian Newey, and a generational talent in Max Verstappen. His dedication, combined with a great vehicle, is what makes Red Bull an unbeatable force, even when they are far from their best. And that's why their dominance will not end in the next couple of years. Let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.